How's it going, everyone? Nick Templin here from Templin Scouting, and today we're moving on to the next team in our off-season predictions videos, and that would be the Anaheim Ducks, who finished second last in the league this season. So, Anaheim's an interesting team, and I'm going to be honest, going into this, I don't really have a major plan for what's going to happen here. So I think we're just going to start by taking a look at who they have to re-sign going into this offseason. So starting with that, looking at their players, going through here. So not seeing anyone here at the top here that is a must re-sign kind of guy. Getzlaf is an interesting one. So he's been their captain for a while now, and a leader for this team. He was there when they won the Stanley Cup way back when, and he's been one of the best players that has ever played for this franchise. That being said, he's not who he used to be. If Getzlaf as a veteran wants to walk and go somewhere else so he has another chance at a Stanley Cup, I think that's going to be his best bet this summer. So looking at it from his perspective, I don't really see him wanting to return. And looking at it from Anaheim's point of view, it's probably not worth re-signing him he would make significantly less than he's been making, but I think it's time to kind of give some of the spots in the roster to some of the younger guys. So unfortunately for them, I think he's as good as gone. Looking down the rest of the list, I don't see anyone too important here. Ryan Miller obviously is retired, so they won't be able to bring him back. So as for the rest of these guys, nothing too special there. Looking at some of the restricted free agents they need to sign, however, this is much more important for them to take a look at. So as you see here, they need to re-sign Maxime Comtois, who has been very good for them. I believe he led the team in points this season, actually, which is awesome. So for sure for him, they're going to have to make some sort of a deal. And I think that compared to some of the restricted free agents we looked at in the other video who are kind of on the younger side like him, he's actually going to make some pretty decent money this offseason, I think, having been that, the leading point guy on their team. So I think you could look at something like this. He might ask for a little bit more, so I'm actually going to put that up to like $375. Yeah. I think that's a pretty realistic deal for Maxime Comtois. I'm sure he'll argue for more, but he led the team in points, but how many points was it? 33 points in 55 games. Wasn't a point-a-game player, and he's still young. Make it a short enough contract that he can kind of prove himself, so that next time he is able to make much more money. So bringing him back now. Next up, Danton Heinen. I think this is a guy they definitely will want to keep. He's a good depth player. Really liked him when he was in Boston, and he was kind of the main piece that came over from the Andre Kasha trade a couple of years ago, that in the first round pick. So I think that he's going to get somewhere in this range, something like that, and he's going to be a bit shorter on that deal, maybe a 1-year deal. Let's just go with that, because he'll be 26 after this year, and they can kind of evaluate whether he's a guy they want to keep longer term. But I don't imagine he will be. Max Jones is next. Nice gritty player there. Can play up and down the lineup. They're going to want him back just to kind of see what he can do. I'm sure he'll be kind of in that range there. And he'll probably sign for 2 or 3 years. Let's go 2 years for him. So let's go with that. Moving on to Isaac Lundstrom, another guy they're definitely going to want back, because he's a guy that I think they see some definite upside there. Obviously, he didn't have a very productive season this year, but I'm sure. He's only 21, so I'm sure we'll see much more production out of him in the future. And being a center, and losing Getzlaf in the summer, he's going to get a chance to play some of that ice time. So, I think they get to look at a nice, inexpensive deal for him, and then sign him on for 2 years to kind of get him to prove himself. Then moving on to Sam Steele. Actually, we'll do Josh Mahura as well. I think that's another guy they're going to want to keep. So we'll do like a $900,000 deal for him over 2 years, 1 year maybe. Let's do 1 year. Keep him around. And Sam Steele, that's an important one. Get him on for, I think $3 million would be reasonable for him over 3 seasons. That could end up being a steal depending on how well he develops. But obviously he has improved enough to earn more than that right now. He might not be willing to take, a 3-year deal, thinking that, he's probably going to be worth more not too long from now. And then we got Alexander Volkov, who I liked him when he was in Tampa's system. So, I'm sure they'll try and keep him, see if he can become something. So let's just see. Just get him on a nice, inexpensive 2-year deal and bring him back. All right, so from there, we can actually also take a look at their reserve list, see some of their, younger players that might get a contract coming into next season. But looking through here, I don't see anyone standing out to me who I think is definitely going to be there this next season. I do like their prospect pool a lot. I'm a big fan of Henry Thrun. He was part of the U.S. development program a couple years ago, and whenever I was watching, he always seemed to be a part of their offensive plays, the guy always starting their breakouts, so definitely look for him to potentially make that roster in a couple of years. Outside of him, I like Sam Colangelo. He's not ready yet either. So, yeah, we're not going to be signing any of these guys right now. So, moving on to down here, let's take a look at some of these players and see who I think will potentially be, somebody they might want to move this offseason. So in my Seattle expansion draft, I actually have them selecting Adam Henrique. So I think I'm going to go ahead and add him in there. For my Buffalo one, I forgot who I was expecting to be taken, but I don't think it was one of their more major players, so I don't think it affects the actual lineup that I ended up with. But yeah, so I'm just going to throw Seattle in here, and we're just going to send Adam Henrique to Seattle, so he's just off our roster here. So from there, what do we got to do? So one, we got to decide who the first line center is going to be. I think that it'll be between Comtois and Steele, but for now I think Comtois has earned it just a little bit more. Steele will be the second line center. Troy Terry will move up probably and play on the second line over Max Jones. Lundestrom can be a nice third line center for them there, but then, they got to figure a few things out. So one of the things I think could happen this offseason is that Ricard Raquel could be a guy they could move on from. He's on the last year of his deal, so I'm sure that they'll trade him at least at some point next season, even if it's not in this upcoming offseason. So we're going to take a look at a team that could potentially be interested in Ricard Raquel. So looking through the team lists here, looking for a team that could definitely use a nice top 6 forward. Let's see. The Devils would be a good choice, actually, because they released Nikita Gusev, and I think Ricard Raquel would be a nice little upgrade there for them. So, how are we going to make this deal work? Well, I think it'll probably go down to like a second-round pick, probably not this year's second-round pick, next year's second-round pick, and like a B- tier prospect, something in that kind of range. So if we look at some of these guys here, Nate Schnarr might be in that. Could be, Michael Vukovic. That could be good. Okay, let's do that. So he's a guy that I think will probably crack the NHL within a couple of seasons. So I definitely like this opportunity for both teams. So the Devils are getting another nice winger to play with either Hughes or Hischier, as well as Palmieri, if they're able to keep him. Oh no, they traded Palmieri to the Islanders. I'm totally wrong about that. But so perfect. That's another guy that they need, or another position that they need replaced. So we will go ahead and make this deal happen. It might look like a bit of an overpay. Some people might not think that Rickard Rakell is worth, a defensive prospect and a second round pick. Personally, I think that Rickard Rakell would look a lot better on a team that is in Anaheim. I think that, he's kind of they've run out of star power there. He hasn't had a lot of great players around him, other than the rookies, who I think are going to be or the younger guys who I think are going to be really solid for them. So for now, this is the deal that I have. I'm sure some people will definitely say it's an overpayment, but personally I believe it's a perfectly fine deal, and I think New Jersey would love making this deal. So from there, there's a few things we got to figure out. Just until we do figure it out, I'm going to slide Max Jones onto the second line here. So ideally, Nick Delorier is a fourth line forward. So that means that this spot right here is definitely vacant. As far as here, I'm actually going to make that change because I don't think Danton Heinen will be a top 6 player in an ideal world for this team. So, some of the things I got to look at, I think a first line left winger would be something they could definitely do. They have a lot of cap space, so they could go out and look at one. From there, I like their centers for now. I think that for a team that's not really planning on competing next season, but just kind of wants to take steps forward, this is a good center core for them. And then they just need a third line winger to play on this side. Danton Heinen can play here, and then Volkov will either be a scratch or a fourth liner. So we can take a look at some forward depth for that as well. Looking into the minors, actually, because I just forgot about Zegras. So I think Zegras is a guy that they could consider for the regular lineup next season. So that being said, I can actually probably do this. Again, I don't want Lundstrom in the top 6. I'm going to move him down once we get our first line left winger here. But Zegras is definitely somebody who should be in the lineup the whole season, hopefully. And then Jamie Drysdale, I'm sure we'll get to see more of him next year as well. So, taking a look at the available free agents. Let's take a look at some left wingers. Obviously, they could go with a right winger as well. It doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at some of these guys. Landeskog won't be available. Colorado is going to re-sign him. There's no doubt about that. I don't think Ovechkin will be available either. Even if he is, Anaheim would not be anywhere on his list. Taylor Hall. So that's an interesting option for them because I don't think Boston's going to bring him back. I'm sure some more competitive teams will probably be on his list, so I don't know that he'll be the guy. But I'm sure that they'll at least try and make a move towards getting him. Looking at some of the other options here, Thomas Tatar would be a good first line forward, but I don't think Montreal is going to let him go just yet. Jaden Schwartz is a good option, and that's a guy that I could see St. Louis moving on from. He's definitely not produced the way that they've hoped in the last couple of years, but he does have the potential to be a good first line forward. The only thing I would say is when I'm looking at this team and the way that their first line is kind of built, they've already got their goal scoring winger on this side with Jakob Silfverberg. They've got kind of a power forward center in Maxime Comtois, so I would say kind of having a guy who can pass the puck really well would be good to have on the left side for them there. So taking a look at the assist leaders rather than the points leaders, some of the guys that are available, I'm going to say that most of these veterans probably aren't going to choose a place like Anaheim, especially Nick Foligno. I'm sure he's going to be looking to try and win a Stanley Cup within the next couple of years. Don't think he's going to do it this year with Toronto, so he's not going to sign with a team that's going to take a few more years to get back to where they need to be. Looking through here, Ryan Dzingel is an interesting option. Not much of a passer though, so I wouldn't say he really fits the mold of what they're looking for. So it gets kind of difficult because you get down here and most of these guys don't have a lot of points. So let's just continue to look kind of in this range. I don't see Zach Hyman being available. Barclay Goodrow, he'll be available. Both these guys are probably going to be available. I don't see how Tampa Bay would be able to bring them both back. But I don't know if I see them as first-line forwards. Coleman would probably be closer in that sense. So when I look here, he does look like the best option. Before I make that signing, I'm just going to check some of the right wingers here to see if there's anybody here who could also kind of fit what they're looking for. Just taking a look here. I mean, they could bring back Corey Perry, but I don't think that that's in either side's best interest to do that. Bobby Ryan, that could be very interesting. I don't think he's going to want to come back there either. All right, so I think the Blake Coleman option is the best one here. So I think coming to play for Anaheim, he can get a bit of a pay raise. And he's put up points the past couple of seasons, so he's definitely proved that he's worth it. So let's just offer him $3.5 million over the next, let's say, 4 seasons. Get him until he's 33 on a pretty affordable deal. But it's definitely an upgrade over the deal he already has, something he's definitely not going to be able to be offered from Tampa Bay because of their cap issues. So let's do it. And we'll move him up to play on our top line here. Now, obviously, Blake Coleman throughout his career has not really been a first-line forward, but when you look at Anaheim and you look at some of the guys that are there, I don't really see any of these guys taking that spot from him and being a better offensive player this upcoming year than Blake Coleman has been the past couple of years. So I think that he's a guy you can definitely take a chance on to potentially become a nice top 6 forward in this whole core here. So taking a look at the defense here, I'm going to move Vukovic down because I don't think that he's making the team with the current core that they have right now. Looking at the other defensemen here, I really liked their pickup of Hayden Fleury. I think that's going to be really good for them in the future. Mahura can be a scratch for them because I do believe that Jamie Drysdale will be a fairly regular player. And actually, I do believe they'll get Hampus Lindholm back at some point next year. So I think the odd guy out here will actually be Larson, and because of that, we will take Mahura and put him down in the minors for now. So looking at that, they're pretty much set. They just need to find some depth forwards that they can put into the lineup if need be. So let's take a look at some centers. It's always good to have a couple of extra centers lying around. Let's take a look at, let's sort by plus minus maybe. So there's a good option there, Freddie Gaudreau. Just have him just outside the lineup on a $725,000 deal for 1 year. The minimum is $750 now. Gotcha. We will go with that. So Freddie Gaudreau down to the scratches, and taking a look at some of the other options here. I like Thomas Nosek. He's a nice physical presence on the back end. They can probably get him for nice and relatively cheap. So there we go. Sign him to maybe 2 years because he's a bit younger. Actually, no, I think he's the same age as Gaudreau, so scratch that. But then looking at goaltending, obviously John Gibson's great. They don't have to worry about anything there. But then looking at Anthony Stolarz, do they like him as a backup? It's hard to know. I think he's better off as a third goalie, so I'm just going to drop him down on the taxi squad. Again, like I said in the last video, I don't think the taxi squad will be a thing next season. That being said, it just makes things a little bit less complicated than throwing a guy down in the minors, because I do think that he's going to see plenty of time with the actual team next year. And then looking at some of the options in net for backup, just looking through some of the guys who actually played a decent amount of games, but not enough that they would probably be looking to be a starting goalie somewhere. David Riddick, that's a great option, I think. And then you can offer him, $2 million. I think that's a pretty good deal for David Riddick. Sign him on there. That's your new backup goalie. So all this being done, you still have $16 million in cap space, so you got a lot of room to work with. But I do think this is a pretty solid lineup. It's definitely one that could be competitive next year. Definitely not one that would jump out at you and make the playoffs, because, I mean, they're relying on Silverberg and Comtois to be their top forwards. But it's good because it gives Zegras a chance to develop, and eventually he's probably going to be able to move his way right up the lineup, but he's just not ready for that yet. I do think that he's going to be the forward that really turns this team around. Drysdale, I don't think will be the defenseman that really makes that huge difference, but I think he'll be really solid for them, so that's always important to keep in mind. Yeah, I think this is pretty much it for what I want to say about the Anaheim Ducks. They have a bright future ahead. I like a lot of their prospects. Braden Tracy's great. I do like Jacob Perreault as well. Benoit Olivier Groux is a guy who could potentially even make the roster this upcoming season. We will see. But without further ado, I think I'm going to leave it off there. So if you guys want to let me know what you think of the Rickard Rakell trade, make sure you comment down below. And if you like this style of video, please consider giving me a like and even subscribing if you want to see more content like this in the future.